so yeah, I went from carting around a Pelican case that probably weighed like 50 pounds with mic booms and all the stuff. And then it was actually Andy Stump that's like, dude, get a Zoom. These things are awesome, you know? And it's recording quality is like slightly diminished, but it offsets it with convenience. And so, yeah, bro, we're already going. You know how I like to do it. I just ambushed you and we started
just like that. We're live. Yeah.
But bro, a couple things I want to start out with is I'm always fascinated with the shows that I got connected with people through the podcast. And you're one of those people, you know?
Yeah.
And it's still fascinating to me that I sit down in front of a microphone and have been able to build real relationships from that. And we connected over Instagram through the podcast. You started talking back and forth with me about different things, invited me out on a deer hunt, and now here we are. And so I know we have a lot of, we got about an hour and 20 minutes. So it's not going to be a super long episode. I know we have a lot to talk about. And so I figure the next time we're in Washington, part 2 is mandatory.
Sounds good.
And I told Shauna, your wife, that it'd be cool if she hopped on too. You know, going down the all the different details about like her book and that kind of stuff. I think that'd be a really powerful podcast.
Yeah.
So, but let's open up with fun stuff and let's just talk about the deer hunt, dude. Because
sounds good.
For people that aren't familiar, Hawaii has a huge population of axis deer. You say axis? No.
Axis.
Axis? Okay.
AXIS. Or they're originally from India. They're called cheetahs.
Uh-huh.
And they were given as a gift by, I want to say, a prince or a king from India to King Kamehameha. Started with 4 deer, and now they estimate on Maui there's probably somewhere between 70,000 and 100,000 axis deer.
They're literally started with 4?
Yeah.
So are they just completely inbred?
I don't know how that works.
Is that not an issue with animals?
I'm sure it is, but I mean, it depends on whether they came from, same family or different family.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. They're delicious.
Dude, they are delicious. That was my first axis. I think it was the night I got here. You cooked up some was it backstrap?
Yeah, we had the loin tip or the backstrap tip with some lime and some fresh papaya from the yard.
And it's like, I like regular venison, but that was different. It's almost like, I don't know, it doesn't have any of the gaminess to it.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to explain to people that the diet that they eat is different than maybe a whitetail who's eating acorns and corn and grass. I'm assuming, I don't know, I haven't hunted in Wisconsin yet.
Yeah. But, you hear that, Chad? Yet.
Yes. But out here, I've seen the deer in the gulch behind our house. They're eating wild coffee. They're eating lilikoi, guava, avocados, and you can taste it when you eat the meat.
Yeah. And you said that same with the pig, too. Also, yeah?
Oh, the pigs, when you get them, especially from the mountain, they kind of smell like maple syrup. They have this sweet smell to them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, that's cool, man. So, yeah, we hit the ground running. We landed Thursday, just did a weekend trip. We did jiu-jitsu with your guys, and you have a cool jiu-jitsu team, bunch of tough dudes there, as expected. Like, Hawaii always is known for having tough cultures on the mats, you know?
Yeah.
And then we hunted hard the next 3 days. One thing that I thought was cool is over the course of the 3 days, we hunted very, very different terrain. I think it was you or Shauna. Someone was saying like you have a lot of different. What's the word I'm looking for?
Microclimates.
Microclimates.
I think there's like 15, something like that here in Maui. We have everything from high desert to desert, all the way to more. I think Iao Valley is one of the second or thirdest wettest spots on the planet. So.
And so like day one, we went what to me felt like deep into the jungle.
It was pretty deep.
Like there was a time when. When your boy Mac was like, hey, follow me. And we're like, I don't know about this. It got so dark midday that he broke a flashlight out.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, this is bizarre.
So that plant that we were kind of crawling through is called the how bush. And it, for those of you who haven't been in Hawaii, it's like a giant spider web of vine trees that just wrap around each other. And the pigs and the deer that we found in there actually like to make tunnels through there and get through there. But I mean, there's no going through without a machete, a saw, Well, I guess my son found a way through, but I was like, that's a young man's game.
Yeah,
I'm not going through there.
We're in our 40s. We'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
But also, like you said, like you're not going to be able to shoot your bow in there either.
Yeah.
You know? Dude, what are the trees that like, you know, normal trees' roots start at the ground?
Yeah.
The trees that roots start at like 5 feet?
Banyan tree.
Because I made the mistake of grabbing a hold of one of those.
Yeah.
And it was like, it felt all spiny.
Oh, yeah. Shucks, what is the name of that one? The fruit, I forget the name of it, but it almost looks like a pineapple. Pineapples don't grow in trees, they grow on the ground. But I think it's in the banyan family.
Yeah, it was like, of course, everything in the jungle is trying to kill you. Mm-hmm. And I got bit by what do you call it? A blister bug?
A blister bug and about 1 million mosquitoes. I didn't, though, because Greg was here, and they liked eating him.
Well, didn't you say they like new, like, tourists? You get off the plane,
seems that way.
You're going to get eaten up, and then your body builds, like, maybe some type of immunity or repellent to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my hands look like like I have leprosy right now, but that's all good. So, yeah, dude, we hunted hard that first day, and you know what was funny is we got a deer.
Yeah.
You and I didn't, but the boys did. But you could tell, like, they were still like, oh, we didn't get Greg a deer. Like, they were kind of let down by it.
Yeah.
And in most areas in the country, if you get one deer on your first day, that's a massive success, you know? So I was like, I told Zach too, I said, hey, if we don't shoot another deer the rest of this weekend, this trip is a massive win. Mm-hmm. We harvested an animal, you know?
Yeah.
And it was cool too, because that's the first deer he killed with his new bow, and he shot it at 52 yards.
That was a great shot.
Dude, and your boy has it on video, you know? And that was really cool. And so, like, just coming out here, getting to meet you, hang out with the family, go out in the jungle, and Zach hits a 52-yard shot, and then we came home and cleaned it and butchered it. To me, that was like, that's anything else after that's a bonus, you know? And then it was day 2 where we hunted 2 different properties, and bro, like, that first property, I probably drew my bow back 10 to 15 times.
Yeah.
Because there was deer everywhere. But I just didn't feel it is actually a good lesson for me. Do you know what ready ups are in the military? Mm-hmm. So they'll be like, you'll hold your rifle in a slung position, and they'll call out some type of target, right? And then ready up. And you try and go from a relaxed position to getting a sight picture and firing around as fast as you can. But obviously it has to be, you have to have effective hits too. So that's where the dichotomy of speed versus accuracy, you have to find that middle ground to be as fast as you can, but still get combat acceptable hits.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, maybe I need to start incorporating that in archery.
I've done that concept here, ready ups. I didn't know that's what it was called, but.
Well, that's what we call them in the Army.
Yeah. So, I mean, most of my kills with access deer are 20 yards or under. And you saw, I mean, we kind of live on the northeastern side of the island, and it's really thick and jungly here. And I mean, I've had kills that have been 3 yards, and you have this deer that walks out in front of you, and even just taking those close shots, you think that, okay, I'm going to put it on my 20-yard pin, but that's not accurate. I had this old timer show me that when you're shooting a close shot, your 40, 50-yard pin is actually more accurate when you're within 2 to 3 yards.
I've heard that too.
Just the way that your eyes line up. And so I've practiced taking those quick shots where I'm standing close to my shooting range, lift it up, and then take a shot quick.
Uh-huh. No, it's very... it became very apparent that I need to incorporate that into training, because I've done tree stand hunting, right? Mm-hmm. Now, tree stand hunting comes with a different set of problems, and I'm not by any means an expert in tree stand hunting. I've went, I think, on 2 different trips. But what I've seen is you start to identify animal movement. You see them coming in on a trail, and you kind of wait for the right opportunity, and you're kind of poised in a position, and everything kind of is a process of waiting for the animal to present the perfect opportunity where it quarters away and it's like, yes, I can take this shot now. Mm-hmm. With that said, I feel, have you done tree stand hunting at all? Okay. So I feel like, at least in Wisconsin, it's like they know, and they always keep either like a bush, a stick, or a tree in between you and them. And, but regardless, you have to, it's more of a patience game. man, when I was out with Jedi in that field, I drew the bow back 10 to 15 times. There was opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. However, the window of from the time the opportunity presented itself to being able to fire a shot was like a second. Because they're just, and we were also, that was a kind of a different hunt, being in an open field where open field mixed in with, what do you call them, Christmas berry trees?
Christmas berry trees.
And as we'd walk through, they'd spook and they'd run out. And what did you say? Like, it's very typical. They spook and they'll pause for like a second or two.
Yeah.
And then they're gone.
Well, it depends. So there's a couple different behaviors that they have. If they get your smell, my experience has been that they're gone. That's probably their best, most heightened sense. They have great vision, great hearing, but if they smell you, they know humans are in the area and they're gone. But if they hear you or they see a movement or something that's odd, they'll spook for a little bit, they'll run, and then they'll kind of pause, and they'll all pop their heads up and look at you.
And that's the window that you're waiting for typically?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Dude, one thing that I thought was fascinating yesterday is we were glassing those a couple bucks, or it was actually like four bucks, I think. And we sat there for what, 15, 20 minutes glassing them?
Yeah.
And then when they got our scent, and the wind was kind of, it felt like it might have been kind of moving up and down or swirling a little bit. Mm-hmm. But when they finally caught our wind, they knew exactly where we were at.
From 80 yards away?
80 yards away. Yeah. Because when they caught our scent and they spooked, they ran 180 degrees away from us, like a perfect straight line away from us.
Yeah. And you saw that first one when it got the scent, it was like it looked almost right in our direction.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, I can kind of comprehend, like, okay, they can just smell really, really well, right? That makes sense. But how can they smell so well that they know exactly where we're sitting 80 yards away?
And when the wind's swirling, how do they know exactly where it swirled in from?
Yeah.
I've thought about that a bunch, but I don't know. My hunting style with Axis deer, and I'm no means an expert, I just get to hunt them all the time.
Well, you and your family have killed, what, 200 or something?
No, that was Mac.
That's just your son.
Yeah, that's just my son.
Okay, so you guys, okay, you are by all means experts then.
Well, there's guys on this island who are, like Uncle Lawrence next door. He's a legend, and he's the one who kind of taught me. But, I haven't been even hunting for years and years and years. It's just, I've kind of, what was the saying from this morning's meeting? Not just send it, but.
Oh, just do the thing.
Just do the thing, right?
Yeah, just do the thing.
So I jumped in and I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out along the way. I started watching YouTube videos and I talked to all my hunting friends. But I guess I have gained a lot of experience just from trial and error and going out and seeing. I became a total nerd when it came to hunting. When I started hunting, not necessarily a gear nerd, but just studying animal behavior. I'd go out and film them. I'd go out and see how close I could get to them. I showed you that, some of the areas that I've been to where I've just snuck in and gotten close to access deer.
Yeah, even yesterday, like when you wanted to spook some deer towards us.
Yeah.
You didn't even take a bow. You're like, I'm just going to crawl up there and then drive them towards you. And we were stalking up the other side, and we got up to about 40 meters. And you got up to 10, right? On those.
Probably within 7.
That's crazy, dude. And it's interesting because everybody, when you listen to guys, Rogan and Cam Haines and the guys that talk about Axis hunts, they always one thing they always bring up is how skittish they are.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, I've literally heard Rogan be like, I've crawled on my hands and knees to get a shot for a long time to get a shot at Axis. And then when we were doing that, I was thinking at the time, I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing it, bro.
Yep.
Commando crawling like way up that hill.
Through the thistles and all the spiny bushes and stuff. Yeah, that was great. But we got it. We got opportunity, right? Which is, I don't know. That's just, I can't really compare it to mainland hunting. But jungle hunting, Hawaii hunting is just, it's tough. It's hard work. It's not a, Cameron Haines 15-mile elk hunt, but we did put in probably, we probably put in close to 10 miles that first day.
That's what I was going to say. I think we probably put in 10 miles.
But it was all on like a, 300-acre property, right?
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
But up and down some pretty gnarly terrain. So, no, it was cool, man. But also, the persistence paid off, too. Like on day 2, We hunted 3 different properties, and we had an hour of sunlight left. And the boys were still fired up. You know, they're like, let's go hunt this 3rd property with our Aunt Susie's place. And you're like, bro, what do you think? You want to keep going? And I'm like, I'm here for a weekend, so I don't care if we sleep.
Full send.
And because, in full disclosure, we didn't really sleep that night. Like, no. You know? And because we decided to push through, oh, thank you so much. We're getting some delicious, what's it called, Shauna?
Giant pancake.
Hawaiian giant pancake. Because we're in Hawaii, and that has a better ring to it, right? But because we decided to push through and keep hunting hard, that last hour of the day, we got 3 deer, right?
Yeah.
And like, not only did we get 3 deer, but I feel like I got the experience that I came down here for. Putting an arrow through a buck at 60 yards.
That was an incredible shot.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the coolest part about it was like, I mean, for people listening, I am not going to do a good job at describing the pandemonium that was taking place in that field, right? The boys had arrowed a couple different deer. They were tracking blood. They were running around the field, and deer were just running everywhere.
Yeah.
And your boy killed one, and then Zach shot one and ended up tackling it and slitting its throat.
Yes.
Which sounds nuts, but
it was suffering.
Your boy's done that a couple times now. That's like part of hunting in that big tall grass like that.
Yeah.
And bro, when you and I were running around that grass, it's 5 feet tall?
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's
easy.
Tall. It's tall grass, so
with lava rocks underneath, and
you can see above the grass. Like you and I we could see each other's heads, but you couldn't see the deer, and they were just. It was like that scene out of Jurassic Park when the Velociraptors were running through the grass. You'd have a deer just sprint right by you, and Jedi's like, "It's right there! It's right there!" And I'm like, "I understand it's right there, but like, what do you do?"
Yeah,
you know, and.
You wait for an opportunity where the head pops up and you plug it in the head like Mac did.
No, yeah, it's crazy. And so they each got a deer, and then one of your boys was like, Uncle Greg, we got to head up to the top of the ranch because I see some more deer up there. So we sprinted up there, and this is after a full day of work, right? But you know what I was noticing? Like what I felt? You know how when you're doing something physical, but you have all of that adrenaline and you're doing something fun, like you don't feel fatigue setting in at all.
Yeah.
And I was sprinting up this hill with a 15 and 16-year-old, and I felt like it just felt right. You know,
Yes.
I was like, I'm still one of the guys.
It's
dude.
Super Bowl Sunday. It's time to go.
That's right. And here's the coolest thing about the kill that I got. Jedi grabbed the rangefinder, and then Mac was like spotting, and I drew the bow back, and even though I released the arrow, it was very clear that it felt like a team effort. You know? And for me, that's a more special experience, a way to have this hunt conclude for me, doing it with your boys like that.
Yeah.
Because if I'd shot one in the jungle the day before, like, don't get me wrong, that'd been cool, right? But that was kind of like how it came together. I think that's how it was supposed to come together.
It's interesting because that's one of the things that I love about hunting, and I don't know how it is. I'm sure there's not many people that can keep up with Cam Haines, right? Just to use him as an example. But when we hunt, it's together. You know, there's always this constant partnership and trade-off where, you know, maybe it's someone's up or they've got a good shooting lane and the other guys will help the range. We work together as a team, and I love that aspect of hunting. It's something that has brought my boys and I together, and we don't get to, I think I'm kind of getting tongue tied here, but it's just one of those things that we really, really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And it's part of our bonding experience, part of our family experience.
Well, and I also think, again, just going out solo and glassing all day and stalking, like there's a part of that that's really appealing to me because I felt that yesterday. Even though you and I are out together, I was like, I could see how it could be appealing to get like some really, really high quality glass and then just go walk around the mountainside and stalk all day. Like it just felt right, you know? But then the other side of that on the train that's not as open, you kind of need tactics.
Yeah.
You know, it's like small unit tactics. That's what is happening there. Have you, I watched a documentary on African wild dogs and how they hunt. And bro, they communicate just like that. Like making animals have certain movement patterns, and then one will go ahead and cut them off and direct them this way, and they corral the animals and then they pounce, right? Yeah. That's exactly what we're doing. And, you know, you hear me say it on the show all the time, how I like activities that kind of touch that tribal side of being a human. Well, dude, when you're coordinating with your brothers to bring home dinner to the family and running through the grass and cutting off lanes of travel and tracking blood trails together and stuff, like that's as primal as it gets.
100%.
And the boys were they were so excited when that arrow hit that deer.
They told me they were jumping up and down.
And I didn't see the arrow hit the deer because, I mean, I know that I'm a pretty good shot because I put in enough time on my range. Arrows typically go where I want them to go, but I don't practice out to 60 yards.
Yeah.
But still, the fundamentals of marksmanship still apply, so I just dialed the pin to 60 and sent it. But my heart was beating so much that, like, I didn't know if it was a good hit or not, right? And then both your boys, they each said something to me that's like, oh, these kids are hunters. Jedi said, I watched that arrow go right into the lung. Like, he saw it.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I didn't see
it. And did you hear what Matt said?
And then Matt goes, oh, I could tell by the sound
of it, right? Yeah.
He goes, I could tell by the sound that it was a good, solid hit. And I was like, man, these kids know what they're doing. So we waited like 20 minutes before we started tracking blood. And do you have a rule on that? Because I've heard different things from hunters, and the boys just wanted to sit for about 20 minutes before going in on it.
Yeah. I've heard from, again, I'm not an expert hunter, but I've, watching YouTube videos, I hear guys wait 30 minutes to an hour, but that's kind of more mainland. And I think we have the clock against us. We have heat, it's hot and humid here, right? So it's not like we're hunting in 30-degree weather where that animal is going to be preserved. So I like to get the animal a little bit faster probably than somebody would on the mainland, just so stuff, bacteria and stuff doesn't start growing. But I typically like to wait at least 15 minutes after I shoot a deer. And it depends on the shot too, right? I mean, you kind of know, like I've shot deer and I've just seen the way that they kick and how much blood's coming out. And you're like, oh, that deer's going to be dead in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we like to wait because I've also thought I had a good shot before, sat for, 10 minutes and you walk up on the deer and it sees you and gets up and takes off running again. And then you never see that deer again. And that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And does that fuck the meat up too?
What's
like
that?
Causing more stress and adrenaline and cortisol? Or, I mean, they're already dying. I guess they're already feeling those things.
I don't know. I've heard that people say, adrenaline can ruin an animal's meat. But I think access deer, just because, again, there's no tag limit on here. We could literally shoot 100 deer. You saw how many deer we saw yesterday. We could have unloaded. We could have filled a couple pickup trucks full of deer.
Yeah.
But we were selective. We already had deer. We knew that we were going to have to clean them all. They're so high strung because there's so much pressure on them that I don't know.
That's just how they live their life.
Yeah, that's just how they live their life. I've seen them have heart attacks before. They're running and they start hitting the fence, and then they drop dead from having a heart attack.
That's crazy, dude. And we saw some of them doing that yesterday. And I remember I told you, I was like, these animals seem so intelligent on one hand, and then they'll just run head first right into a fence, and it's like, dude, do your eyes not work? What's going on? But so we waited like 20 minutes, and then we started walking towards them. And if you guys hear dogs barking, like I always say, we do real life here.
The boys are back from fishing.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We got up to where the deer was hit, and they dropped down, and they said, "You see that bubble?" And this wasn't big either. It wasn't like I shot one deer where it was like you said, there was so much blood that that deer's going to be dead in 2 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of blood, but there was enough blood that made them happy. And then they leaned down and they touched it and smelt it and did all the investigative techniques.
Deer forensics.
Yeah, and they say, see that? You see these little bubbles? That means you hit the lung. this deer's dead. And I was like, oh man. So then you get those emotions of like, hey, I've had a successful hunt. It's happened. And then we started tracking it and we lost the blood trail.
Yeah.
And now it's dark out too. So we're tracking. And every time I've killed a deer, it's at dusk too. So what do you call that? Deer 30?
Deer 30.
Yeah.
Deer 30 around here starts around 4 to 4:30. And I think it's just because the heat of the day starts to die down and the deers get up and they start moving around. And I've literally sat in certain spots for hours. You don't see anything and deer 30 comes around and here comes a herd from one side, a herd from the other side, and you're surrounded by deer.
So now we're tracking under... dude, lesson learned for me too, because I didn't take my headlamp because we weren't planning on doing anything at dark. Well, sometimes you don't get to dictate how the day goes. So we're all sharing one light. It's like, give me the light. I think I see some blood over here. No. Give me the light. I think I see some blood over here. And it was starting to become chaos. And then we lost the blood trail. And then sure as shit, Mac found, dude, I'm not exaggerating, a speck, like half the size of that, 60 yards away from where we lost the blood trail.
Yeah, like half the size of a pencil eraser.
Yeah. And then he could look where the last drop was to where this drop was and could guesstimate a trajectory of the animal. And we started walking. He's like, yeah, he's right over there. See him? And he found him, Yeah. And it was exactly, we had just been talking about it because you were talking about how when animals get hypoxic from when they start to lose too much blood, that almost like they're drunk.
Yeah.
And he was doing that. His head was swaying side to side, but still clearly still alive, clearly still alert, because you could tell he was trying to look around and listen and whatnot. And that's when Mac goes, meh, and like did a call to him, and he turned right towards us and put a second arrow in him.
Yeah.
And a headshot.
That was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. What do you think? I think headshots are probably the most humane way to do it, right?
I would say so. I mean, if I have a rifle, there's two reasons I'm taking a headshot. One, I feel it's just the most humane. And two, you preserve as much meat as you possibly can.
Yeah.
You're not wasting any of the neck roast or any of the shoulders. And I just think that's the best way to do it. Shout out to 4B Outdoors. He's the guy who kind of taught us headshots, but he's been dropping pigs with, field points. And that kind of turned us on to that idea going, I never thought about shooting a deer or a pig with an arrow, but after seeing him do that, we're like, okay, it's possible. And then Mac Mac literally had that deer jump up in front of him, 5 yards? Yeah. And all you could see was his head, and he dropped it right with a headshot. And you shot your deer in the exact same spot too.
Yeah. And dude, like, and the boys are having the time of their life, right? Like they're laughing and they're smiling and they're all teenagers and just having a good time. But for me too, like we kind of talked about this. We're a little older. We've had a front row seat to death. We have like a different perspective on life. And I think that's just part of being in our 40s, right?
Yeah.
But killing an animal never feels good to me.
No.
It feels, don't get me wrong, it's like I'm excited to celebrate a successful hunt. But at the same time, like I want to put that animal out of its misery as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And then you can have those emotions of joy and whatnot,
Well, I kind of shared with you my family's ethos. Again, being a firefighter and seeing all kinds of death, it doesn't get any easier. And even an animal's death is heavy to me too. And I've tried teaching my kids that every animal that we take is a life. And we give thanks to God for that animal. We give thanks to the animal for providing food for our family. And it's a heavy situation. I think the celebration that you saw from the boys is them just being excited that you got your animal, and that all the work that went into that.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of the things that we try and do too is with that animal, honor that animal by using every bit of that animal that we possibly can. It doesn't go to waste. And for us, the celebration starts when you sit together around a table with your friends and you get to enjoy that and you get to share the story and the adventure. That's kind of where the celebration, in my opinion, really kind of hits home.
Yeah, one thing you said that was interesting that made me think, you're like, dude, if you're going to spend thousands of hours on the range, you're going to invest a lot of time and resources into the equipment and the practice and then the hunt itself. If you're really going to like honor that animal and celebrate, then you need to take the time to prepare delicious meals with friends and family as well, right?
Yeah.
And so like you really geek out on the cooking side of things and the different recipes and whatnot. And I kind of see a movement in that area. Like it's Ranella that's like dove deep into that, right?
Yeah.
And my buddy Jordan is like, that's like his favorite aspect of the hunt as well, is being able to prepare the meal for his friends. And you're on board with that. And it's
100%.
like, I bought the book you recommended. That's my next thing, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing, you just mentioned it. You said, we make sure that nothing goes to waste. Because like there's a lot of hunters, especially somewhere like this where there's no limit. Like you can kill as many Axis deer as you want, and you could just be pulling back straps out and leaving the rest, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, we eat the neck, we eat the shoulder, we eat every single part of the animal.
Bones, make bone broth with the bones.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to tan the hides.
Yep.
And my boys will make knives out of the knife handles out of the racks and the antlers and stuff. So.
Yeah, dude. And then everything that we can't consume, you feed to your pigs and your chickens, and everything here on your little farm, like it benefit every single piece of the deer goes into something. So that's cool, man.
Yeah. And then again, like I showed you with the deep bedding compost system that we have, once all that stuff's broken down, we take that and we put it on our fruit trees. We put it in our garden, and everything grows crazy because it's got all this calcium and nutrients from the animal carcasses, from the plant material, everything that we put in there. And it just, we put some on our orange tree out there last year, and we had a crop where the orange tree was actually all the branches were touching the ground. It was,
really?
there was so many,
a noticeable difference.
Noticeable difference. Yeah.
Okay. Have you always been like kind of on this like self-sustaining path, or is this a newer thing for you guys?
Well, we shared with you our health journey when our son got cancer. That's kind of where we started really looking at what we ate and where it came from. I've been a diver, a spear fisherman for 20 plus years, and I really enjoy that aspect. I enjoy the adventure, but then I also like getting to share that food with friends and family and knowing where it came from. So I've always enjoyed farm to table. I've always enjoyed eating that food, and I can noticeably tell the difference when you're eating some crappy GMO food versus something that was harvested on an organic farm or properly raised, properly sourced. So I've enjoyed it, but we didn't really dig into it as deep until our son got sick. And once that happened, we really started putting an emphasis on that, knowing our farmers, knowing where our food came from, knowing how it was grown, knowing if there was chemicals put on it and sprayed on it. So that was kind of the start of our journey. I'd say maybe 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. And that's something I've really pulled from this weekend is we can all do better in that realm, you know? Like unhealthy food gets its hooks in most of us just out of convenience. Because it's exponentially more difficult to not only take the time to understand what you're eating, but like a lot of what you guys do takes a tremendous amount of work too. Like this Hawaiian, what is it called?
Giant pancake.
Giant pancake.
Yeah.
The Hawaiian giant pancake. You went and grabbed all the eggs for it out of the chicken coop this morning.
Yeah.
You know, and Sean was like, these are still warm. You know, like, I don't know. I think it's cool, man. But again, it's going to take a lot of work too. And I don't think it's feasible. I shouldn't say it's not feasible because it just comes down to what you prioritize, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people are never going to arrive at that conclusion. But you guys kind of got forced into that by life circumstance. And man, you can everything I've eaten here, even the muffins, like you can just tell, like you said, when you eat stuff that's full of GMOs and bullshit, your body can tell. It can also tell when you're eating things that are like nutrient dense and healthy. Your body just there's something inside that's like, yes.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get that when you eat Skittles.
Well, like those tacos we made, or the carne asada, or I don't know what the correct term would be, but I call it carne asada with venison, the neck. We slow cooked that thing for probably 14 hours, and you saw the collagen and the marrow and everything, like just how I don't know, that's one of my favorite dishes. That sauce that's in there with all that stuff is so good, and there's so much fat and goodness in there that when you eat it, You just feel supercharged.
You just know.
Yeah.
And you said most people don't eat the neck, huh?
A lot of guys throw the neck away. That's my favorite part of the deer. Well, second favorite part of the deer. The shanks is the other part that I was talking about. But similar dish. You're making osso buco with it. You're cutting it up into 2-inch chunks. And as you slow cook it or braise it for a long period of time, all that collagen, all that marrow, all that goodness comes out into the sauce. And it almost has like this velvety texture.
Yeah.
And
it was delicious.
Yeah. And you eat like a small bowl and you feel full because there's so much just nutrients in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that was funny, like, again, being from Seattle, like some of the things that are normal to you guys here that are not normal at all was the day we got here. I'd met your boys, 5 minutes earlier. They just got back from spearfishing. Yeah. And they're like, well, Uncle Greg, we had a bunch of fish that we were going to eat for dinner tonight, but a big 14-foot tiger swam up alongside of us and snatched my whole bag from me. Not saying it like it's some wild adventure or it's some crazy shit. It's just, that's why we're not eating fish tonight.
Yeah.
And just kept going on to the next story or whatever. I'm like, hold on a second. Like, that's not something you can just gloss over, all right? A 14-foot tiger shark came and took your fish from you. I'm like, how close was it? And he goes, I don't know. Like, I think my line's 20 feet or whatever he said. So it's inside of 20 feet. And it was normal to them. And that's not normal to me. And they just went fishing this morning, not spear fishing, but they're already talking about, hey, next time you guys come out, let's hunt a couple days, but let's do a day of spear fishing too. And I'm like, mate, we'll see.
Yeah. You want to go train jiu-jitsu on that day?
Yeah, I might go train jiu-jitsu. On that day. And then talking to you guys, you're like, oh yeah, I've been chased out of the water a couple times. And I mean, that's just part of spearfishing here, huh?
It is, yeah. Well, more than a couple. I mean, we probably have a more in-depth relationship than a lot of people in here because we just spend so much time in the water. But I mean, I want to say it was 2020 or 2021, we probably had 10 shark experiences that year because we were doing so much diving and just, everything was kind of shut down. So, we spent most of our time in the water.
Dude, it's nuts, man.
Yeah. It makes you appreciate your food that much more, though. You earned it.
And so is that just do the sharks know that then and follow the divers around? Does that become kind of like a relationship?
So this is kind of one of my pet peeves with diving, and I'm sure that some people will disagree with me, but I look at sharks as like big dumb dogs. They're opportunists. If you drop a steak off the table, my dog's going to run up and eat it before you can grab it off the ground because he's like, oh, there's a steak in the ground right in front of me. And I feel like that's kind of how sharks are too. They see you swimming around and you've got your cooey, your stringer of fish, and they're like, oh, there's fish right in front of my face. I'm going to eat that. I think that there are a lot of divers, and I've seen this just, working in the fire service, who freak out and they start swimming in and they just ditch their gear. I've seen guys ditch their gear. We found gear floating out in the water that people have just left there because there has been sharks. And I've always taught my boys, we're fighting. We're gonna poke the sharks away. We're gonna bring our cooeys in close to us so they don't associate humans with food. There are some places.
So not just to protect yourself, but not to build a pattern in their brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
That they see this red floater in the water, and and people, that means food. That means free lunch. So, we've fought a bunch of sharks. There's a shark that's very, maybe territorial is what I'm looking for, but I see him. I used to see him all the time. I think maybe he got caught or something. But it was this big Galapagos shark down at this place in the south side of Maui that I would see all the time. And he was super aggressive. He'd come in and try and eat your fish. Anytime, even if you had one fish on your stringer or 20 fish on your stringer, he would come after you. So we would just always fight him and poke him back.
When we stop recording, can you tell me why he's no longer with us?
Well, I don't know.
I'm kidding. No. I know you said the culture is we don't kill sharks. The Hawaiian people don't appreciate that. So.
I'm a Haole boy from the mainland, so I'm not going to speak too much into Hawaiian culture. But my understanding is,
but you're here and you're respecting it. Yeah,
100%. And I've got some of my best friends and family are Hawaiian. But I know in the Hawaiian culture, some people believe that they're their amakuas or spirits or ancestral relatives. Yeah, certain animals. People, you hear people use the term, "Oh, that's my spirit animal," jokingly. But I think that they actually believe that there's maybe a connection to their family lineage in some of those animals. So,
which is common with a lot of native cultures.
Yeah.
And
I respect that. Like, I'm not, again, we're talking about hunting, we're talking about diving. We don't flagrantly kill things just to kill things. If an animal eats my fish, I'm not going to, a shark or something that eats my fish, I'm not going to kill it. Now, if it's my life or their life or my kid's life or their life, I was like that one shark experience I was telling you about that followed us all the way up to the beach. And I told my boys, I'm like, you guys swim, you get to the shore. That thing followed me all the way up to the rocks and was trying to bite me as I was climbing onto the rocks.
So you're like swimming backwards and just poking it with your spear gun?
Yeah.
God, dude. Hey, let's go back out and see what we get tomorrow.
We have been back out there, yeah.
How big are the Galapagos sharks?
I don't know exactly how big they get, but we've seen them probably close to 8-9 feet before, right,
Okay.
Jedi? Yeah.
And so, obviously, a bite from one of those, even if it's not looking to attack you, it's just trying to take your fish from you, it could be catastrophic.
Yeah.
When you were, when you were with the fire department here for what you said, 13 or 15 years?
13 years, yeah.
You dealt with shark attacks. That was part of your duties. What would you see Galapagos attacks, or would it primarily be tiger sharks, or what is that like?
By the time we're on scene, we don't always know what sharks did it. We're showing up,
I guess that
half an hour later.
Yeah,
and when I was on the rescue,
chaos.
We're going to the heliport to get into the helicopter to go fly and see if we can spot the victim or where the sharks are. But the stories we hear and my experience being in the helicopter is a lot of times you end up seeing a tiger shark around. Kind of swimming in the area when those attacks take place, like some of those videos that I showed you.
Yeah.
I am still not convinced. The day that we got attacked by that Galapagos shark and it chased me all the way out to the rocks, I think it was like the day before or a couple days before, a lady got eaten just down the road from where we were. Her arm got bit off. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was that same shark, because he
just had the temperament for that. Huh?
He definitely had the temperament for that.
Man, dude. It's just what's normal to some people is just crazy,
But do you know how good the fish tastes after you get chased out of the water by a shark?
Well, I didn't get chased out of the water, and I had your ceviche, and it was the best fucking thing I've ever had in my entire life.
Nice.
Yes, I do know. But dude, you got to tell the story you told me. You were responding to, was it a tiger shark in the water, and there was a dad and 2 kids?
3 kids.
3 kids.
Yeah.
All right.
So
this story needs to be told, so you make sure that you are never that dad.
Yes. Don't be this guy. So we got called to a missing snorkeler down at this place called Chang's Beach in South Maui. And he had been swimming, snorkeling, and then never returned. And so the search was initiated. I believe I came on the next day, so that I wasn't on shift when that happened. But the next day, being part of the rescue company, our duties are to search for missing people or, survivors or deceased. And we have a couple different assets. We have boats, jet skis, scuba equipment, and a helicopter. And so that day we were doing a combination of swimming, looking at all the cracks and caves in the water. And then, and we had a jet ski for platform, and then a boat for a platform. And then we also had a helicopter. So we were doing kind of a combination of those 3 things. That day we ended up finding part of the guy's shorts. We found his fin and we found his snorkel. No, his mask is what was found.
And clearly that he had been attacked?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was obvious. But again, as morbid as this sounds, I still feel the guys in the Maui Fire Department, it's kind of our honor to bring home something to bury. If we can help a family have some closure, just so that they, imagine losing somebody to the ocean and never seeing them again, never knowing. I mean, I as a father would probably never quit looking. Maybe they got out. Maybe they got kidnapped. Yeah.
Well, bro, I don't know if you ever heard the story about me pulling those dead pilots out of the Black Hawk in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. But 14 years later, I gave the family patches off of his uniform that fell off during the extraction.
Yeah.
And they told me, they're like, that was so powerful in helping us find closure. Just being able to talk to someone that was there that night, that saw what happened, that has a little bit of insight. And so when families go through traumatic things like this, like they're starving for information, And like you said, that little piece of a pair of shorts or whatever might be like what they need to just move into acceptance or whatever it is, you know?
Yep. So we're looking. We're working with the Coast Guard, and we're doing, I think, again, this is day 2. And we're kind of following the drift pattern. So the Coast Guard will drop these buoys off in the water, and they'll send out a radio ping or some kind of a signal that the Coast Guard can track. And then we follow the kind of the flow pattern of the ocean, and we're looking to see if anything pops up, if anybody starts floating. And there's a beach in between here and where this flow pattern had gone. And we were kind of searching the flow pattern back and forth. We'd just seen a monster shark cruising around in the water. I don't know how big it was, but it was big. Like, I mean, bigger around than you could even put your arms around. Like, you and I try hugging the thing, we wouldn't be able to get our arms around. It was a big shark. And as we're flying, we hear it come over the radio, hey, there's a shark swimming towards the beach where there's a bunch of people in the water. So my friend Jeremy Story and I, we had one engine guy working with us, and we kicked him off. We hopped on the jet ski and flew over there like 70 miles an hour as fast as we could because we knew that there's people in the water. And as we're approaching from the left-hand side, we see the helicopter hovering over the shark, and it's working its way in towards all these people. So
it's just matching the shark's speed and trajectory?
Yes, exactly. So it's swimming in. They're watching it. They're trying to chirp people on the beach to let them, or in the water to let them know to get out. But, all the tourists are like, oh, look at that helicopter. That's so cool. They're getting out their cell phones and watching and stuff. So we're probably, I want to say, from the beach exit, the easiest place, the sandy beach for people to get out of this beach, maybe 100 yards. And then they could go up, but it's all razor sharp lava rock that they could climb up and out maybe 40 yards. So they're 40 yards from the side of the shore, and then 100 yards in from where they get out of the water. And we get to this.
What's the beach called again?
It's called McKenna Landing.
Okay.
Yep. So we get to this guy, and he's got his 3 kids. They're probably 12, 10, and 8. And he's got 2 sons and then an 8-year-old daughter. The daughter was the youngest one. I'm guessing on the ages, but just being a dad, that's what I'm assuming. And there's a language barrier. He's a Japanese tourist, and we're like, "Hey, you need to get your kids out of the water. Get on the jet ski. Get on the jet ski." So our jet skis have these sleds that tow behind them, that rescue sled that we can throw people on. And I get in the water, I grab the first boy, I throw him up on the thing, and this helicopter's moving closer. And I look under the water, and I can see this just monster shark coming towards us. And I'm like, oh, shit, all right, here we go.
Fuck, dude.
I start yelling at the dad. I'm like, hey, get your son, because the daughter's kind of far away. She's probably 10 yards away from where everybody else is. And I find, I'm like putting my hand up to my head, my forehead, making like a shark fin kind of sign. And the dad finally gets it and realizes that there's a big shark coming, and he freaking jumps up on the jet ski in the fetal position, pulls his feet and hands up out, and leaves his kids in the water to survive for themselves. I'm like, you asshole. Like, and his daughter's looking at me like she's kind of starting to figure out there's something emergency going on,
Yeah, all these guys are coming to rescue us.
So I throw his son up onto the jet ski, and I start swimming towards the daughter to grab the daughter. And my friend Jeremy, whips the jet ski around and gets over there. But we're both we're both dads. And, Jeremy was a Army soldier, combat medic. I mean, he's a stud, big dick energy all the time.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how we operate. And we're like looking at this Japanese dad who's like pulling his legs up in fear, leaving his kids in the water. And I'm like, his kids are going to need therapy for the next 50 years after this experience. I swim over, grab his daughter, and throw her on. And then the shark's within like 10 feet of us at this point. And we get in and we take them into shore.
Dude, well, it's like I said when you told me that. I was like, dude, I hope his wife saw from the shore. Because if I did that, and this isn't being funny, this isn't being silly, I would fully expect my wife to divorce me.
Yeah.
Like, I have considered you the protector of this family since we've started this family. And when you needed to show that you had the opportunity to be that protector, you failed that test miserably.
I am fighting and winning, or I'm dying to protect my kids.
Well, bro,
that's where I'm at. And shout out to my friend Kaleo Roberson. You know the store we went to, Jaws Country Store.
Yeah.
So her sons were out surfing one day with her husband, and a tiger shark came up and bit their board. And Kaleo punched the shark in the face like 5 times. He's a scrapper too. But that's what I'm doing. I'm fighting the shark to the death, or I'm dying and making sure my kids are safe. So
no, I told you. I said when I went out with the boys in Hanama Bay.
Honolulu.
God, why am I getting that backwards?
Hanama's it's a big tourist bay on Oahu, yeah.
Yeah, I thought, and it ended up being a buoy, so maybe my shark identification's not up to par, but the mindset remains regardless, is I was like, oh, I see, that looks like a big shark over there. And I literally told myself, well, go towards it. And because the boys were right behind me, I was like, I'm going to have to get eaten so they don't. It's like, that might sound silly. And it wasn't me. That wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be a hero or like none of that. It's just like the boys are in the water with me. I have to make sure I'm the one that gets bit if this thing starts coming towards us. That's just how you do business as a man, right?
Yes.
Well, not for some, I guess.
I know.
And dude, aren't we hardwired to protect our children? Like I always say, I'd fight a grizzly right now. Right? Like a grizzly's on one of your kids, I'm going to go fucking stick my hand down its throat and try and jam my thumb in its eye. Like something.
But Mac's going to be like, back off. This is my kill.
Yeah, I know, dude. And so,
yes, I know what you're saying.
So yeah, ladies, choose your men wisely. I say ladies. There's probably 2 ladies that listen to the Endless Endeavor. That's not true. I hear from ladies once in a while.
My mom listens to Endless Endeavor.
Okay,
yeah,
hell yeah. Choose your men wisely. So like, if your kids are ever in a shark attack, that they don't get eaten. That's so nuts, dude. So yeah, dude, we're coming up on an hour here.
Wow, has it been an hour already?
It's 51 minutes. I know we got to get out of here at 9:30. We got to stop recording about 9:30 because we got a lot of stuff to do. I got to get to the airport. And so, I mean, bro, you have one of the most powerful tales I've ever heard. And to tell you the truth, we can't do your story justice by burning through it about losing your son and how it brought your family together and how it strengthened you guys and all that. What I want to do is have you and Shauna on together to tell that story.
That would be awesome.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want you to tell the story of Trucker long format about his fight through cancer, how he inspired so many people. I think we should do that next time you guys are in Washington.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I think would be good to wrap up with today's episode, not wrap up, we got 25 more minutes or whatever, but this podcast is successful because people that consume what we talk about are usually freedom fighters, right? People that were sick of being told how to live and being subjugated and being forced vaccinated, all the stuff that society was just up in arms about. When they finally heard someone speaking about this stuff on a podcast, they're like, finally someone that can tell the truth that we all feel, And a lot of people talked about standing up against tyranny, but then when push comes to shove, we saw a lot of those men buckle too, right? And you were one of those guys that had a front row seat to that. You're like, no, you're not vaccinating me. I love being a firefighter. I've been a firefighter for a long time, but you're not vaccinating me. And you said a lot of people were in your corner on that. And then the more pushback you got, more and more people started buckling. And at the end, it was like almost a one-man show. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely some people that stood up, but maybe they weren't as vocal as me. Maybe I'm kind of stubborn that way, but, yeah, I guess I'll start back with kind of the beginning of things with the fire department. But and I want to be clear on this too. Like, I love the guys in the Maui Fire Department. They're my brothers. You know, there's some really, really awesome people in there. There's also some people that I would say acted pretty cowardly over the last couple of years, and that was pretty sad and disappointing. But for the most part, a lot of the guys are really, really great guys. I had a great career there. I worked in Maui Fire Department for almost 15 years. And I spent a lot of time pouring into that career. I love being a firefighter. My first memory that I have as a young child is I was 2 years old in Banff, Canada, and I got to sit in a fire truck, and I remember them putting the lights on, and I was like, I want to be a firefighter. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So this isn't just, it wasn't for me just a job. It was something that I pursued. And
it was a passion.
It was a passion.
Yeah. And talking to other people, including your wife, it's, because, you have a lot of humility. You're not going to sit here and tell me, like, I was the man, right? So I'll be the one that sits here and say you were the man. But it seems like everybody understood, like, you were the guy that people could rely on or call or ask for help or, hey, can you train me up on this? Like, inevitably in the world of first responders, I feel like the community is divided into a couple different categories. There's some people that are there for a paycheck and they don't want calls to go off, and when they do, they're like, "Oh, here we go again."
Which is pretty small, just to be fair to the professional.
Of course. Yeah. But then there's also guys that are on the far opposite end of the spectrum, and it sounds like you were always one of the go-getters. You loved calls, you loved helping, you loved working hard, and that was who you were for the department. And it sounds like everybody knew that, you know?
Yeah. I would say, I was part of our teaching cadres for well over a decade. I was part of our honor guard. I was part of our critical incident stress management team, our peer support team. Like I wanted to help people, and not just people in the community, but also our brothers and sisters in the fire service too. So that's why I was part of those groups. I like serving people. I like helping people. I like being a problem solver. I like doing those things. So I put my blood, sweat, and tears into that career. And I took classes. I went to classes on the mainland. I helped teach a ton of our incumbents. And I taught a bunch of recruit classes. Probably over half the recruit classes online right now I help teach. And, I would say that the chiefs were actually in my corner a lot of times for many years. They were stoked to have me be their guy. If they needed to get information out to the guys in the fire department, they would have the fireground operations cadre teach it because we were so well respected and people listened to us. So if there's information or things that needed to get taught, we would help teach that to the department. And I think that my voice was strong and powerful in the right direction and for Maui Fire Department until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so when COVID
sounds very familiar to me.
Yes. Yeah. So when the COVID stuff started happening, I remember I was cooking that day. I know there's a ton of law enforcement guys that are going to probably say something about this, but yes, firefighters, we get to eat really good food and we have a kitchen at the station and sometimes we take naps or get to sleep, but there's nights when we don't too. So, and typically when you guys, law enforcement shows up, someone's going to jail. When we show up, we throw their TV out their window and spray their house full of water. And they're like, "Oh, thank you for showing up." So
yeah.
But yes, I was cooking that day. I was preparing food for the guys at our station, and I saw the emergency proclamation come out, and I knew that our Governor Ige had said, and I knew that they were going to try and force vaccinate us. So I went.
So what? I guess what year or month was this in the pandemic? It had been going on for a year or something?
It's been going on this is in 2021 sometime.
Okay.
And so I saw what was coming down the pipe, and I went in and talked to our chief. And I said, "Hey, they're going to try and push this thing on us." And I had a conversation with him. He let me into his office. He always had an open door with me, and he said, "You know what? We're not going to do that. We're not going to force anything on you. We got your back. We're going to fight for you guys." And I was like, "All right, cool." I had a little peace of mind, and great. I'd already been having these COVID conversations. There's a lot of us in the department who saw things going on in the state that didn't make sense. They're closing mom and pop stores, but keeping Costco open. They're closing the gyms and the jiu-jitsu gyms and the health food stores, but you could still go to McDonald's and all these fast food restaurants. And we're like, that doesn't make sense.
And bro, I made my video in May of 2020, right? It took a couple months of observation before you just come to the conclusion things aren't what we're being told, right? And bro, by 2021, if you couldn't see that this was obviously not rooted in fact, and there was a lot of the government was doing this, and it was agenda driven, and we can save that conversation for another time. But what was happening and what we were being told were clearly two different things.
Yeah.
And I think if your brain worked by 2021, it's like, okay, I see what's happening here.
I would say even from the smaller policies in the fire department, there was things that were coming down that like we always had to wear a mask, but they're like, especially when we're out in public, just for public perception. But when you guys come back to the station and you all sleep in the same bunk room together, you don't have to wear masks.
So are we here as firefighters to be examples of what's healthy, or are we here as firefighters to push your fucking propaganda?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's offensive.
It is.
And plus, not only is it offensive because they're asking you to participate in a game of charades, but you are a representative of the government as someone that's a government employee, and you're going to lie to people?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
It never sat right with me.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to go along with it. And so I shared this story with you this weekend, but I mean, there's one photo of me wearing a mask, and it was, we do an annual every year in Maui Fire Department where they take a photo of who's on what crew, on each watch. And it's just kind of a historical record. And it's cool. You look back through the fire department annuals and you're like, oh, I remember
all
that
the different
captain.
teams
Yeah,
you were
all the
on
different
and
teams that you were on. And, oh, I remember that guy. He retired. He was a great firefighter, And so it's kind of a cool thing. And it talks about all the calls that we went on. Rescue 10 went on this many fires this year. And they went on this many rescues. And the engine 5 went on this many calls and this many mountain rescues. And so you have kind of a historical record. And you're like, oh, yeah, that was cool. Remember that fire? And it's just... Not only is it for the public, but it's also just a cool thing for the guys in the fire department to look back on the history and the lineage of leaders that you came from, right? But anyways, 2021, they have, we're getting ready for the MFD 2021 yearbook. And we get an email from the chiefs, or the captains got emails, that, hey, even though we're requiring masks all the time, you don't have to wear masks for the company photo where you're standing shoulder to shoulder next to somebody. And I'm like, what is this? Is this the deadliest pandemic in the world and these masks work? But it's okay to take off for a photo, or is it all bullshit? So
you're going to kill your grandma if you take your mask off, but we need to take the yearbook needs to look sharp.
The yearbook needs to look sharp. Yeah. And I'm like, this is such bullshit. So,
and no one's willing to say it.
Nobody said anything. Well, I was,
yeah,
I'm public enemy number 1 to Chief Brad Ventura. So
go to stud instructor, hardest worker in the room, to public enemy number 1, because you said something doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Yeah. So for that yearbook, I put my mask on. It's the one and only photo. I went and put a mask, found a mask in the station, put it on.
Because that was your way of saying, hey, if we have a mask policy,
yeah,
then we have a mask policy.
Yeah. Not a photo policy, photo mask policy, right? It's a mask policy. Because the policy is based off of health.
That's right.
Right? It's not based off of the way things look. It's not the way that people perceive things. If we're wearing a mask, it's because it's a health issue.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of what I did. And I made a statement. I made a political statement. And my captain looks in the photo. He's just like, I could see it in his eyes. He's so disappointed, But it is what it is. And so my department knew that I was not a mask wearer, that I'm not playing the game. And it wasn't just me. There was a bunch of guys who stood up against that and didn't wear them at the stations. And then there was a bunch of guys who did. And there's even some guys who still wear them. And I'm just kind of blown away by the whole thing. But where were we at? We were talking about, the emergency proclamation. So I was vocal about the things that I saw coming down the pipe. And I was also talking with other guys about it. So there was around 50 to 70 guys in our department and another 20 at ARF, which is the state side, all in Maui County, who did not want to get vaccinated. We were having these conversations. So that's why when I went to Chief, I said, hey, there's a bunch of us who aren't going to get these things. And if they force them on us, it's going to be a hindrance to the fire department. He's like, you know what? We got your back. We're going to fight for you.
The easiest thing to say.
I don't know how long exactly it was, but I want to say, it felt like a week, but my timeline's maybe off a little bit. We get an email shortly after that says, if you guys don't get the vaccine, you're getting fired. And I was like, I went into his office that day that we got the email and I was like, Chief, what is this? You gave me your word, you said you were going to fight for us. You said you were going to stand up for us. And he basically brushed his hands and said, my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do about it.
Which is just a pure cowardly statement. Because if you as a leader believe something, then you should be the one leading the charge. Even if your chief wanted to get vaccinated, right? Even if he wanted to, and he believed the vaccine was good.
And I would respect that,
That's what I'm saying. But knowing that his men don't want to, and if he looked you in the eye and said, I'm going to fight for you, then fighting for you looks like this. My firefighters have the autonomy to decide if they want to get vaccinated or not. That is their freedom of choice. And if you don't think that is the position that I should hold as chief, then fucking replace me with a different chief.
Yeah.
That's how the conversation should go.
They wouldn't do that. You know what the mayor would do? I'm not going to go into the fire department.
And that's the thing. If everybody would be willing to do that, then this would have fucking stopped immediately.
Yeah.
But because dude, my chief said the same fucking thing. We agreed with your message. It was actually my commander. We agree with your message, Greg, and we think what you said is valid. But we were told that it had to come down, so we're just relaying the message that your video has to come down. It's like, how are these men that are holding these positions of leadership fucking so cowardly when push comes to shove?
Yeah.
It's sad, man.
It is. It was really sad for me. And it was like, I mean, what
did he say when you said that to him, though? He said, my hands are tied.
My hands are tied. And that was it.
That was it.
He seemed frustrated and irritated, and the conversation was over, So I ended up walking out, and I was like, all right. I started dialoguing because of my son's story. I would say I'm trucker famous. You saw a little bit of it this weekend, but everybody knows me as Trucker's dad.
Yeah.
And I had firefighters from all across the country reach out to me during that time that my son was fighting cancer. So I have these relationships, and not just our department, but departments in Japan, departments in Germany. I know firefighters in Australia. I know firefighters.
A crazy story that I'm excited to tell next time for sure, man. Because your son inspired people all over the world in his short life.
I had friends in Oahu too. So I started talking with them, and I said, hey, they're going to fire us. We need to do something about this. So we talked to our friend Kristen here, who's a lawyer, and she talked to us about other firefighters on the other islands who were doing stuff, and we filed a class action lawsuit. Not a class action lawsuit to not take the vaccine, but just to have the right to test. File an injunction so that we have the right to the guys can even just test.
So in lieu of vaccination, just get tested?
Get tested. And the sad thing is that not everybody was on board with that. We actually lost guys who were like, fuck that. I'm not even testing.
You're not sticking shit up my nose.
You're not sticking shit up my nose. But I was, again, I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm trying to
You're trying to navigate something for the first time too. Yeah.
So we ended up filing this class action lawsuit. And I'm not sure if your listeners know exactly how class action lawsuits. I'm not a sue person. I've never had to sue anybody before. So it was foreign to me. But the way that it works is you have what's called a class representative. So you can have 10,000, 100,000 people in the lawsuit, but there's a representative for each class. And so the way that this one worked out was that you had the lifeguards in Maui, the lifeguards in Kauai, the lifeguards in Big Island, the lifeguards in Oahu. And then same thing with the police department and same thing with the fire department. So there ended up being 12 classes or 12 class representatives. And I ended up being the class representative for Maui Fire Department. So I represented all of those 50 or 70 guys in Maui County who did not want to get the vaccine.
And so now you're like, they look at you as like this rebel, right?
So that lawsuit went against Governor Ige, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green, who's our governor now. It went against the mayors of each county.
Another pussy.
Yeah, exactly. Who's taking money from Pfizer too, as part of his political contributions too. And then I believe the health department and the chiefs of all respecting departments. So now my name is on a document suing the mayors, suing the...
At that point, you're fucked no matter what you do.
No matter what, yeah.
Yeah.
So
because they're going to flex they're going to make this a dick measuring contest.
Yeah.
Instead of doing anything that's rooted in honor, it's like, oh, you're coming after me, I'll show you. And
when I became a firefighter, when my chief became a firefighter, we swore an oath to preserve and protect the Constitution. So, I again, this is Hawaii, and there's, this is another podcast for another time, but the Hawaiian sovereignty movement and the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian government that took place, there's still some wounds with that. There were some rich business owners that overthrew the Hawaiian government and threw the queen in jail and basically took over and made Hawaii, it was a monarchy, and it was basically overtaken by the U.S. government and some rich businessmen. So there's still some wounds, I would say, from that event that took place. And there's still people who have relatives who are alive when that took place. And there's not a lot of trust for the U.S. government in certain Hawaiian communities or circles.
And understandably so.
Yes.
And based on the actions that we've seen over the last 4 years, they were right.
Yeah, they were right for sure, 100%. But that being said, I still am a proponent of freedom. When I know some people who are involved in the sovereignty movement out here, and they're good friends of mine. And I actually believe that they should have their rights too, and they should have freedom.
Well,
right?
bro, how in the world of first responders and police and stuff?
Yeah.
And I fell trapped to this too. Like, that guy's a constitutionalist. Mm-hmm. That's their way of saying like, oh, he's a weirdo that isn't going to answer your questions, or he's not going to roll his window down because he actually doesn't have to, right? And it's like, as a cop, that stuff would like frustrate people, right? That's every single American's right to be a constitutionalist and not answer your fucking questions and not act like you're their dad. You know what I mean? Like and it's funny because now I'm on the other side of it, but it's like, that actually makes sense. You know? I don't answer questions.
It does.
Yeah. I think that's going to be...
I don't put stuff in my body that I don't consent to.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't put things on my face that I'm not going to wear a muzzle. I don't, and if I want to say something, I'm going to say something, So, but again, I think there's kind of this dichotomy, right? That part of the Hawaiian culture is like, screw the Constitution and freedom, and maybe not not freedom. Freedom's great. People like freedom, but they don't believe in the idea of America, right?
Yeah. They didn't choose to be part of this. They were just told they're part of this.
Exactly. But again, I look at the Constitution as a document that supports people's individual rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Of course. Right? And sovereign Hawaiians too. I think that, and I'm not saying that document is over them, but I feel everybody, regardless of where they live, should have the right to pursue something that makes them happy.
Yep.
They should have the right to be able to say things that they want to say. They should have the right to be able to defend their family. They should have those rights are inalienable. They're given by God. They're not given by men. So I believe that that's the side of the Constitution that I believe in. And so,
well, and that's one thing that's very, not to cut you off, but I think it's a very important thing when we're talking about the Constitution is the Constitution doesn't say the U.S. government gives you the right to this, gives you the right to that. No, the Constitution says our government won't infringe on the rights that are inalienable, that are part of life as a human being, that are bestowed on you by your creator. We're not going to fuck with that because you get those. That's part of being a human being.
Yes.
They're not saying that we gave you those. And if they didn't give them to us,
they can't take them away.
They can't fucking take them away. And that's where they're out of control now because they suddenly think for some reason that they now have the authority to take them away. And that's where
write that there's an emergency proclamation on a paper, right?
And that's where men like you and me are like, hey, motherfucker, you can't take something that you didn't give me. Yeah. That's not how it works.
100%. So, again, we fought back, filed the lawsuit, and from that point on, I became public enemy number one. I had friends who were in the administration who were telling me, bro, you got to keep your head down. They're talking about you in the back rooms in the chief's offices. They're looking for a reason to fire you. So, again, going from a firefighter who had exemplary personnel evaluations my whole entire career.
Yep.
I was instructor of the year in Maui County. I'm not tooting my horn.
No, you're speaking facts.
Yes.
You didn't get instructor of the year because you're a fucking shitbag.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Yeah. And I went to all our, fire department fundraisers for the muscular dystrophy foundations. I went to the highway cleanups. Anytime there was an event going on, our family would show up and we would help cook and clean for funerals of fallen firefighters and stuff like that. So
just being part of the family, part of the deal.
Being part of the family, right? And went from just being sneered at and people calling me names. Guys that I worked with who, even at the firefighter level, who I felt like if I went down in a fire, they would have left me there. And so that was hard for me, bro. Because when I grew up with 5 brothers, I believe in the idea of brotherhood. Not just saying I'm part of a brotherhood, but if I say I'm somebody's brother, like I'm going to be a 3 a.m. friend. I'm going to show up. If they call me and say, hey, I need you right now, I'm like, okay, I'm grabbing my gun, I'm grabbing my boots, and I'm heading out the door at 3 a.m. That's what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm showing up to, but I'm going.
Yeah, I'm here for you.
And that's the kind of friend that's what I believe brotherhood is. And so I had friends who were saying, calling me the grandma killer names and saying I'm a dirtbag for not doing this stuff and not going along with it. Meanwhile, I just worked a year through COVID, going into people's houses, getting exposed to COVID. And it was okay that I was working alongside them then, but then all of a sudden I'm not getting this experimental shot, and I'm the asshole. And I experienced stuff where where people called names. I had a promotional exam, and I got all my gear ready the night before. I got my dress uniform out. I polished my boots, my dress boots, put them on top of my locker. And I had a friend who came in and covered my shift that night. I came in the next morning and someone had thrown my boots away. These are the guys that I worked with. This is my crew. It was one of 16 guys.
Bro, in my opinion, and I know I'm kind of you're pulling crazy Anderson out right now because you throw my boots away because that's your little fuck you moment. Yeah. You should be beaten to death with a hammer. Like literally. Like, who would ever do that to someone that you're supposed to be on your team, right?
I would never do that, even if I disagreed with them.
Of course, bro. And I thought a lot about this when I went through this. Is the guys that like, because I had guys that I considered friends. Like, one of them went to the news and talked shit about me publicly, right? And it's like, it made me think about, why would a man, like, I can have an opinion, right? If you don't like my opinion, then that's fine. But why would you want my opinion to be stifled, right? Yeah. And kind of what I've landed on is the people that feel that way about you or felt that way about me, it's because there's a part of them that knows they're right, that knows you were right. And when you had the courage to stand up and say, I'm not fucking doing this, and they didn't, your actions made them feel like a pussy.
It's a mirror. It's reflecting.
That's exactly right, dude. And so when you make someone feel like a pussy because you have the courage to stand up, that makes some people arrive at the conclusion like, well, you know what? Fuck Joshua. Fuck him for doing this. He's bringing heat on us. He's this, he's that. And really the reason they're angry is because of their own inadequacies.
Yeah. Or fear. I think some guys were genuinely afraid, which is crazy to say.
No one was afraid after a year.
Well, yeah, maybe after a year. You're right. Yeah.
You know?
But
and
I
if
think
you were,
initially
and
some
if you
guys
were,
were.
Same conclusion.
Pussy. Yeah. Exactly. But
Bro,
yeah.
Here's the thing. And dude, your job, and don't get me, I mean, firefighters do a lot of stuff that is not just like scenes out of the movie Backdraft where shit's blowing up and the ceiling's falling down, right? But a lot of times you were doing dangerous shit. You just talked about fucking jumping in the water in front of a 12-foot tiger shark to pull an 8-year-old girl out, right? Like, courageous things that you had to do that encompass the job. And I saw this shit. I talked about on the show before, like the most courageous men that I've ever worked with was in Ramadi, Iraq. But once you start to threaten those people's paycheck, they have physical courage to confront danger, run into burning buildings, but you don't have the courage to look at your chief and be like, I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah.
And they don't. And that I've never been able to wrap my head around that.
It was so sad for me.
You're willing to confront death head on, but you're not willing to look at another man and say, no, I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about?
And I don't know. I mean, call me old school, call me what you will, but I'm a man of principle. Like, I will, if I believe in something and I believe it's important, I will hold on to those values even to my detriment, because I know that that's who I am. That's who my character is. I'm not going to waver over a paycheck. Well, I'm not going to waver over comfort. I'm going to go through the hard things because I believe in those things. When I believe in something, I'm not backing down.
Bro, one of my good friends, and next time you come up to Washington, I want you to meet him. His name's Rick. He refused the vaccine order too, right? And he worked for, he's high up in Boeing. Like he does very well for himself. And he goes, you know why I'm comfortable saying no, Greg? He goes, because he owned a construction company, and when the market collapsed, he lost everything. Lost everything and had to rebuild himself from the ground up in his mid-40s. And he goes, when I did that, it actually taught me how powerful I am, and it taught me how strong I am. And it was one of the most powerful experiences of my life. And so if I have to go through that again, it's actually kind of exciting. And he's like, so there's no fear around losing everything, because last time I lost everything, it made me a stronger person. And he goes, so if I lose everything and end up homeless out in the woods, I'll come back stronger than ever. Nice. And it's like, dude, that's the mentality that men need to be holding, you know?
And I think that's a great time to kind of shift this conversation. I'm not trying to shit on the Maui Fire Department. There's some really great guys in there. But I definitely had some issues with the leadership, you know? And again, like, we got sent, those of us who were unvaccinated had an outbreak. We got sent home without pay, where they sent the vaccinated people home with pay. And I'm like, that's just discrimination. We had to fight to get pay for working through a pandemic and through an outbreak. And guess what? That most of the people who were sick in that outbreak at the station were all vaccinated, you know?
Well, and now that they know, because remember when the percentages kept Fauci's like, the vaccine is 100% safe.
It was considered that was they call it at that time. That we were saying this is a breakthrough case, even at our fire station. This is a breakthrough case.
And now it's 90%. Now it's 70%. Then it went all the way to the point where the pendulum swung so far the other way, where it's like we're actually seeing that vaccinated people are having a higher rate of COVID. All right, so you should probably go back and require back pay.
I know
like your science was flawed. You guys were full of shit. And you owe me for fucking this many days.
Yeah.
Good luck though.
Again, and like I said, I think it's a good time to transition. But I mean, I hit rock bottom. I had a chief officer, my battalion chief at the time, come into the kitchen. He pushed me up against the wall with his finger and said, "Quit being a fucking fag and get the vaccine. Don't be a homo. You know Trump made the vaccine. He's like, you should be on board with that thing," and was like telling me those things. And I'm looking around.
Oh, I want to stab that dude.
I'm looking around.
God. Fuck, man.
I'm looking around at this guy. I could have mopped the floor with him,
Of course you could have.
But I'm looking around going, in the back of my mind, my friends are telling me who work for the admin that they're looking for a reason to fire me. I'm like, am I being filmed right now? There was actual guys who I worked with on my shift who were witnesses to this thing, and they actually spoke out against it also. But I'm looking around going, I'm being set up right now. So I just kind of ate it. I just kind of smiled and nodded my head, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I then pulled my captain aside after, and I said, "Hey, Cap, this is just what happened with our battalion chief. I want to file a complaint. I want to file a grievance of workplace violence." And again, just so you know, I'm not a pussy. I grew up with 5 brothers, but this chief is,
you trained.
He's a rule follower.
That's
He's
right. Yeah.
Follow the rules. And when you work for a government organization, especially in 2021, you can't say the word fag. You can't say the word homo.
You can't push someone.
You can't push somebody. You can't even look at somebody without getting, like we had to take classes every year in the county. An 8-hour class to teach you how not to discriminate against people and how not to do workplace violence, and then sign it and send it away. Every year we had to do that.
Well, bro, and I know that you would have gladly been like, "Hey, battalion chief, we can handle this 2 ways. I'm going to file a grievance to play by your rules, or we can go out on a concrete parking lot and fight to the death. Mm-hmm. Which way do we want to go?"
I wish I would have thought of it at the moment. That would have been great.
Well, yeah, but we already know which way he's going to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These motherfuckers, like, And again, like you were, because I probably would have snapped and been like, "Fuck you," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you saw that was part of the setup for sure.
Yeah. So I filed the workplace violence grievance. It got investigated. We have a guy who used to work for PD, and he does our internal investigation stuff. So he came and interviewed me. He interviewed the guys, and a week later, after that investigation, that battalion chief retired. Nothing happened. Nothing ever came of it. So, again, this is...
Bro, that's the fucking... All of the high-ranking guys, you see it all the time. They just get told to retire, and then it's all good.
Yeah.
And
Fuck meanwhile, you. I'm there after being humiliated and called out and name-called and all these things, and I had to deal with that. But again, like I said, I don't want to end on that because... Well, let me finish, I guess. Do we got time? How are we looking on time?
Yeah, we got 10 minutes or so.
10 minutes or so. Okay, so... Fast forward, they found a way to terminate me. And I did not get terminated over the COVID vaccine. I got terminated over a mask. So I want to say early February of 2023, the CDC comes out and the president announces no longer is the pandemic a thing. It is no longer an emergency proclamation. Life is back to normal. We're sweeping it all under the rug, right? Fast forward 2 months. And April 26th or 25th, which is the day before my birthday, we get called in for a random drug test. And we go into the random drug test, a place that I tested even during the pandemic, and I asked for reasonable accommodation. They did not make me wear a mask. During the height of the pandemic in 2021, I didn't wear a mask. I was like, "Can I pee in the I don't see why peeing in a cup requires me to wear a mask." They let me do it. They made reasonable accommodation. So I go in, and they've got a sign on the door that says you got to wear a mask. And I looked at my captain or my officer for the day, and I'm like, "I'm not putting on a mask." And they're like, "Yeah, we're not wearing one either. That's stupid. The pandemic's over." Mind you, in Hawaii, nobody, even the super mask Nazi hospital that we've had, isn't requiring people to wear masks at this time. We go in there, and the lady's like, "You got to put on a mask." And so all my crew who said they weren't going to wear a mask puts on masks in order to take the test.
Of course they do.
Even after they agreed with me, right? And I asked the lady, I said, "Why do I got to wear a mask?" And she said, "Well, because of the pandemic." And so I said, "Hey, per the CDC, per the President of the United States, the pandemic is not going on anymore. I'm not sick. There is no emergency proclamation." I said, "Are you a doctor?" And she goes, "No, I'm not." And I'm like, "Well, then I'm not going to wear a medical device without the consent of a doctor. And furthermore, I'm expressing my First Amendment constitutional right. I'm not going to wear a mask, and I'm not going to consent to something that I don't agree with. I don't see how it's relevant. I'm asking for reasonable accommodation. And I filmed this whole thing. I've got it all on film. I said, I don't see how me wearing a mask is relevant to me peeing in a cup. And so they're like, you need to go outside. So I go outside. My captain goes, you know what, let's check in with the other testing facilities. So in order to drive the fire trucks, we need a Department of Transportation drug testing facility, is my understanding. It's something along those lines. And our drug testing memorandum of agreement states that the chief can have the discretion to just send our guys to wherever we want. It doesn't matter. I mean, people have tested, I think, even with a proper person have tested at the fire station. Mm-hmm. So my captain calls this other testing facility that we've been to before, and they've let me test there. And he goes, hey, can my guy come in and test without a mask? And he goes, and they said, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, pandemic's over.
Pandemic's over. Come on in. You don't need a mask to test. So he calls my battalion chief. My battalion chief talks to Fire 1, who is the guy who was on the lawsuit. My name was on the lawsuit. And he tells my battalion chief to tell my officer, tell Joshua to come back to the station. So I don't want to be insubordinate. And he said, no, he can't test at that place. Tell him to come back to the station. So, okay, we're going to work this out. We go back to the station. We get back to them. Battalion chief and the fire chief come up to me and they're like, oh, you left the testing facility. That's failure or refusal to drug test. We're terminating you.
Oh, you got me.
Yeah.
You finally got me.
You got me.
Like, yeah, everybody knows, oh, he was actually out doing drugs last night.
Well, I actually had people asking me that. Like, bro, I heard you failed the drug test.
Shut up, dude.
Yeah. I wasn't even drinking caffeine at that time. I was right in the middle of 75 hard. I was like...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. Like, look at pictures of Joshua when he was in 75 hard. He looks like you're, 3% body fat, eating fucking... all organic foods that are fucking harvested yourself, like completely taking care of yourself. Everybody knows you're the go-to guy. Everybody knows you're fucking instructor of the year. You didn't fail it. You didn't walk out of that facility because you were going to piss hot. No. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Right? But they finally got your I got you moment.
They did. So,
and you know what? Fuck them. Because, and I shouldn't be speaking for you. This is how I felt. Once I know that my higher up didn't have my back through something that I felt they should have my back for, I can't work for you anyways.
Yep.
I can't. Because now I know that when push comes to shove, you'll hang me out to dry. Then I don't think I need to be part of your organization anymore.
Well, I'm going to use Shauna's term, and I'm going to finish this with a shit sandwich. So I started with the good, love being a firefighter, shared with you kind of the bad stuff. And even my chiefs, like on my exit interview, they asked me if I wanted an exit interview. And I said, yes, I do. I sat in with them, and I explained my career. I wrote it out on paper, and I read this letter, and I actually I actually said, I forgive you guys for the way that you've treated me. Mm-hmm. I forgive you for the way, because I don't want to hold on to bitterness in my heart. I could very easily hold on to that rage at the injustice, the way that I was treated, but that's not the end of my story.
And it's not going to serve you either.
It's not going to serve me either. It's just going to make me more mad. So I actually forgive them, and I'm forgiving. I'll say I'm actively forgiving them, because it wells up every once in a while, and I got to work through that, right? Hence, that's why I did the 35-mile, 35-pound ruck back in January. I'm like, I had some heavy shit in my mind, and you know what? I decided that week, I'm like, I'm going to go for a ruck. And so I did a 35-mile, 35-pound ruck to Lahaina all night just to clear my head. Because that's what I'm like, I don't want to medicate. One of the things I learned from, going through the stuff with my son is I don't want to medicate, whether it's Netflix or porn or drugs or alcohol or any of that stuff. I'm like, I'm going to do this sober, and I'm going to work through these things. And so it was about a week. Well, let me start here. I came home that day from getting terminated. Never been fired from a job in my life. And I was heartbroken, man. It was my dream job. And my daughter, we're all sitting around having dinner, and she looks at me, she puts her hand on my shoulder, and she goes, Dad, I'm so fucking proud of you.
Yes, dude.
You stood up for us. You stood up for what you believe in, and man.
You showed your family leadership, bro.
Yeah, and to me, like right then, I'm like, you know what?
It was worth it. Everything was worth it.
It was worth it. And you know what? My story's not over. Like I'm just getting started, So what else is out there? Like I thought at that week, I'm like, I'm going to write my book. I'm going to write a book about this one day. And it's going to be like how losing my dream job was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'll say this, it has not been peaches and roses and cupcakes to this point. It's been a year now, and it's been hard, man. I hit the ground, and I had to kind of grow a business to provide for my family. And it's financially, it's been rough, you know, and it's been stressful. And I'm learning QuickBooks. And you know me, you saw me this morning on the Zoom thing. Like, I type with 2 freaking fingers. So I'm trying to learn QuickBooks and accounting, typing with 2 fucking fingers. And I'm like, this is brutal. So yes, there has been hardships, but I have grown so much as a man going through this. The resiliency that I've learned, the perseverance that I've learned, the fortitude, the ability to get back up. Like your friend said, you know, he lost everything. I feel like I've been given this gift to keep going, to show my kids that, like, you don't stop when you get knocked down. You get back up and you figure something out. You fight. And even with my business, which is a landscaping business right now, like I burn the boats. Like, I jumped in. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, I don't have any other options right now. I'm going to make this work. So I'm reading books on business, and I'm reading books on QuickBooks, which I don't recommend because they really suck, you know? I'm watching entrepreneur videos. I'm doing these things, but my growth has been so much in the last year. And I feel that as much as I got hurt, as much as the heaviness that I've been through, it's just made me stronger and a better person. So, yeah. And I don't know. There's more coming.
Dude, no, it's everybody that goes through this. Like, I've talked to a lot of people because of just obviously the nature of the type of people that consume this show are freedom fighters. And so this happened to people all over the country. Yeah. Right? And they wanted to take men like us, and they wanted to muzzle us, and they wanted to make us sit down and be compliant. And it's like Andy Frisella always says, they want us fat, weak, and stupid. And when there's men that push, I shouldn't say men, when there's people, because there's lots of strong women that stood up too. When there's people that push back against this, they want to try and stifle that as much as you can. But when you don't allow them to stifle you, and you get to start to experience that growth and that change and that shift, bro, right now is the most exciting phase of my entire life. Yeah. And like, you're feeling it too. Your wife told me, she's like, dude, the man that Joshua's become in the last 12 months is something that's been super powerful to watch, because you're growing into a new, stronger version of you. And what does it take to do that? Fucking adversity, bro. Yep, for sure. Right? And so, dude, I hate that we're running out of time, because I feel like we're just like, we could go and go and go. We got so much more. But we're already 12 minutes past due, and we got a flight to catch. So
and we have a shit ton of meat to pack up.
We got a shit ton of meat to pack up. We got to eat our Hawaiian big pancake. We got shit to do. And so, bro, part 2's coming. Awesome. Either next time I'm down here, I'll bring a 3rd headset and we'll get part 2, or when you guys come up to Washington, because we're just getting started on your story. And it is a story of persevering through a lot of hardships and coming out as a stronger, more capable, great human being. And that's a story everyone needs to hear. So thank you for this. I know we kind of burned through it, but any final thoughts?
I think that as a man or a woman, if you take a stand, if you stand up for what you believe in, you know your why, and you stand, even though it might be lonely, even though it might be sad, even though you might lose some things and some friends, there's something waiting for you on the other side that is so much better. Because when you take a stand, your children see, and your neighbors see, and your friends see. And all of a sudden, you give them permission to stand up and be brave too. You give them permission to stand up and fight for what's right. And that'll change the world.
Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah. I can't wrap it up better than that. So thank you, man.
Thank you, man. I'm glad that you came out here and spent your you bought a plane ticket and you came out here and spent time with us. And like, I just feel honored that you came to my house.
It's been the best. It's been one of the best weekends I've ever had. Zach told me the same thing. So
we were already talking about him coming back, and he's going to sleep on our couch. So.
All right. Thank you, brother.
All right.